so much. I understand that I'm the last obstacle between you and your lunch, so I try to boil down my comments in the short takeaways. And first of all, congratulations to the person who came with a theme of spiraling through the conflicts. That means spiraling, and just check the dictionary just to make sure it's a drastic and dramatic increase in something. So we definitely have a dramatic increase in conflict, and the Middle East could become even more dangerous place. Previous speakers talk about Taiwan. We don't know what happens in Baltics, Kaliningrad, even Belarus. You know, like we don't have a shortage of potential conflicts. What nobody mentioned today in this panel, in the previous panels, is survival. And preparing for this session, I read some of these briefings of the Minister of Defense, and he told a story when he went to Israel, and in Jerusalem meeting with his counterpart, he said, like, what you do like in Israel, how you deal with that. And according to what you said, he said, we survive. So we need to survive because we don't know if Putin will use nuclear bomb or not. This is a question nobody asked today. And this is something which puts us in completely different dimensions. Going to Israel, you mentioned, going to history, you mentioned 38. I mentioned the year 1939, when the Soviet Union at that time decided that his security was damaged by Finland. And they asked Finland government to give away a couple of hectares of land, kilometers of land, and Finland government decided to say no. So what happened? The Soviet Union sacrificed 250,000 Soviet soldiers and got part of the land. And at that time, Finland decided to deal with that and give away lands to maintain a sovereignty. That's what might Ukraine do. We don't know. Second point, unity. Many people use this word today, and even reading the statements of the outgoing Secretary General of NATO and upcoming Secretary of NATO, it's unity. But unity doesn't come without resources. And I'm very glad that Admiral Stavridis mentioned that now we're going not only 2 point, but we're going 2.5 and sometimes 3%. And in 2014, there was a pledge investment fund, which already got more than $600 billion. And the increase of the spending for the military and defense, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 10 or 11% by the year last year. That means we have this muscle, and we need to have muscles. The only thing this muscle is not used when Soviet troops decided to invade Finland, they decided to invade Czechoslovakia, they decided to invade Hungary, they decided to invade Georgia, Crimea. The response was weak. Now what Putin finally achieved, first of all, he's the best NATO salesman of the year, because the Finland and Sweden joined the club. And from the history, if you know like what is the total title of Russian Tsar was, it was Tsar of Russia, Empire of Poland, and Grand Duke of Finland. That's why I think people of Finland did a good decision to join NATO before Putin decides to get, what they say, historical lands, and his views include Poland, Baltic states, and Finland. We remember what happened to a person in Italy named Mussolini, who decided to gather Roman lands, and how that ended. Red lines. I don't think we should be afraid of red lines, and NATO should put some muscles in that. Going briefly to NATO summit, many people talk about what NATO should do, what NATO should not be doing. First of all, Ukraine. I'm ethnically Ukrainian. I'm a retired colonel of Ukrainian armed forces, and I might be biased, but I think that Ukraine belongs to NATO. I mean, like, Ukraine is doing what NATO is what it's supposed to do, keep Russians out. And I think that Ukrainian armed forces are probably the strongest and more prepared and using more innovations than any other countries. Lesson from history, you remember after the Second World War, Germany was divided by countries, by sectors. But Western Germany, despite of that, was taken to NATO. So if something happens and we have peace, I mean, not peace talks, but some negotiations, and the war will stop, the war will not end. The war will only stop in Ukraine. That part of Ukraine still will be Ukrainian, qualifies, more than qualifies to become part of NATO. And the final, I have 8 seconds, final, we need to look how to revise the Washington Treaty. The Washington Treaty was written many, many years ago before we had iPhones or Tesla. You know, like a military attack is not precisely, is too fuzzy now as a term to invoke Article 5. And this is a loophole. I remember when there was a Falkland War, and the Great Britain asked NATO to invoke Article 5. They say, well, we are in the North Atlantic part, not in the South Atlantic part. So there are plenty of loopholes, and it's only once it was invoked. And I think what happens right now, every country is willing to donate and help Ukraine because they understand it's not war with Ukraine, it's war which might spill over on other countries, and that we will need to survive. Thank you.